I hope everyone is having a blessed. Hope everyone's having a great Sunday morning. Bookman back with another video. I read two different samples of indie fantasy books that these authors graciously reached out to me on my Instagram platform. So I'm going to link that in the corner of my Instagram. So yeah, it's going to be right there. They reached out to me with samples of their work, and free of charge. I was able to read selections. The first vary between 3 to 4 chapters of their longer works, novel works. And today we're going to talk about if I plan to continue these stories after reading the sample, what I liked and what I disliked, and if I'd recommend you all to read them, or what specific readers I would recommend to read these stories. So first, we're going to talk about book number one, which is Vengeance and Honor by Ben Dixon. Before we dive into my review of the sample of Vengeance and Honor, I would like to give a big thanks to Ben Dixon, Mr. Dixon, for reaching out to me on my Instagram and allowing me the opportunity to review his sample to his high fantasy novel and putting a review onto YouTube. So first, let's touch on the genre. Like I said, it's high fantasy, so think like Lord of the Rings. We have all the different races. We have goblins, dwarves, elves. One of our main characters is an elves. Is an elves. We also have humans, orcs. That sort of feudal setting. We have kings and queens. Um, But one thing that really struck me in the beginning of reading Vengeance and Honor is ironically the first chapter, how solid it was. I think that there's really tight writing in the first chapter, but it was also very well paced as well. It wasn't like rushed. I think you know it's not doing anything like completely new for the genre. The opening is kind of your traditional, maybe the start to a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Our main character, Hindle, who is an half elf, half human, he sort of enters this inn, and hijinks ensue. We get to witness how badass he is. Part of my language. Um, but basically, he catches these thieves in the act of trying to steal, which leads him to meet another feature player in our story, which is going to be sort of, I don't want to say outlawed, but like runaway prince, who sort of ran from his responsibilities as a prince to a kingdom, a nation, or however you'd like to put it. But yeah, even though this opening does fall into a common trope for the fantasy genre, I think it was executed well. There was a lot of intrigue to start. We have some characters with different personalities. We already get a feel for what kind of people they are, and we get some action to start a story, which you can never go wrong there to grab your reader's attention. So yeah, the first chapter and the pacing, it wasn't like rushed, but it also didn't feel like it was being drug out. Like I think it had pretty good, you know, pretty good pacing. That's the word I was looking for. The first chapter, of course, is where my enjoyment of the story ends. The rest of the chapters are just really bad. That's a joke, of course. I really did enjoy the rest of the chapters as well. I think one of Dixon's greatest strengths, at least in this story, I know he's written another trilogy. I haven't read anything from that trilogy, but the pacing is really great. It feels smooth when you're reading it. You're not like being slammed in the face from drastic scene changes. There's a very natural flow to how the characters get from point A to point B, and they get to point A and point B in a timely manner. So I really enjoyed the pacing. It helps with the whole reading process. The way he's able to make the story smooth out and flow through the narrative instead of it being like boom, boom, boom. The character work, I like the characters as well. I think we sort of get a good idea for these characters, but we also get little tidbits to their backstory, to what is more to them, why they're maybe outcasts or running away from their responsibilities. You know, little footnotes for us to sort of go into depth later to keep us interested in this character's background. So that's also, you know, great writing there, is to leave something for your reader to chew on, and then maybe you answer later. So he also does a really good job at that. If I had to touch on something that maybe through a rewrite, or if I could go back, from an author perspective to maybe clean up a little bit, my own, I guess what I'm trying to say is my only really critique with the story so far, 4 chapters in, is there is like bits of dialogue that don't feel natural. I think when Hindle, our half elf, half human main character, first enters the tavern, he talks to the tavern maid. Her name is May. She sort of like rambles on a bunch of like exposition things about what all that the inn can offer, and we have rooms, but there's one room you can't have, which she's hinting at why. I think what Dixon's doing here is the reason that she's hinting at one of the rooms is reserved is it's sort of a device to make the reader feel, oh, like who's in that room, um, which is good, but I think in dialogue I don't see like her naturally saying that. Maybe I don't know. I guess reading the scene, I'm thinking of like how would a waitress, I guess, at the store address me when I went enter, you sit at a table, and or maybe when you enter like a bar or something like that. I don't see like the person going in this much detail about the like not company, but like all the services they can provide, and like details about the inn. Um, this is not all dialogue, of course. I think the rest of the dialogue is pretty solid and it feels real. Um, but there's another instance, I believe it is when Hindle and Rick, who's the prince who ran from his kingdom to sort of live a life of free of the harsh responsibilities and the pandering that people would do to him when he was in a position of power, he is talking to Hindle about his situation, and it feels a little bit expository, especially since this is the first time that the characters are meeting. So, I guess just from personal experience, I don't know if I would go into this much detail about my backstory or where I came from or my life to someone that I've just met. You know, even though that they saved me from getting pickpocketed, I guess. So that didn't feel too natural, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I would personally address someone that I just met with this, like talking to them this much about myself. Um, someone I met just offhand because like they helped me, not get my wallet stolen. So like I guess if I was walking in the street and I dropped my wallet in my pocket and a guy ran up and he said, "Hey, that guy tried to take your wallet, but here it is." Like I'd say thank you. I wouldn't go and I wouldn't start talking about where I come from, stuff like that. Those are the only real two instances of the dialogue being a little bit out of place, though. I think the rest of the dialogue is pretty solid. Now, of course, guys, I've only read the sample, which is the first 4 chapters. So I can't give a full detailed review on Dixon's writing style or my thoughts on the story because, I didn't get to read all of it yet. With that being said, would I continue reading this story? I think I definitely would. Like I said, minor issues with the dialogue, but the pacing's great. The, Dixon leaves us with enough intrigue after the sample to be like, hey, I'm curious what path the story's going to take now, how these characters' fates are going to turn up. He leaves us with enough tidbits to sort of keep our interest and wonder what's going to happen next. So yes, this is something I would continue reading. Who I would recommend Vengeance and Honor to if you are interested in purchasing the whole edition. I might try to reach out to the authors and see if I can get links to their Amazon pages or something like that, so I can put those in the description. So look for the description if you are interested in it. Um, if not, though, I think if you're a fantasy fan, especially a like high fantasy fan or maybe even epic fantasy fan, I would pick this up. If you're like a Dungeons and Dragons fan, I think that too, because we've got that high fantasy element. We have all these races, and we have these characters of different origins because we have elves, stuff like that. And the writing's tight, is good, so I wouldn't worry about having to push through it. So yes, I would continue reading Vengeance and Honor, and if you're a fantasy fan, then like I would definitely at least check it out. The next and final story that we're going to talk about today, guys, is going to be the Aidaean Aidaean saga. I apologize, Matt Sean Bell, if I'm saying that incorrectly, Mr. Bell, but Aidaean Saga: Triumph of Destiny. Now, the author actually pitched the story to me as a like sci fantasy story, so basically meaning that we have elements of science fiction, which we get to see through the mode of transportation that these characters use is very like sci-fi techy, but we also have fantasy elements, and that is shown through the characters, wielding different types of magic. So if the blend between science fiction and fantasy is something that interests you, then I think maybe giving this book at least a try or reading the sample would be a good idea. One of the strengths of Triumph of Destiny is its world building. We have actually a pretty unique world here. It's sort of like a Warhammer 40K situation, I guess you could say, if you want to make a comparison, where we have these sort of different races, but we're in sort of a more futuresque setting. And I really enjoyed that part of Triumph of Destiny, how Mr. Bell was able to work in all this like unique world building in only like 3 chapters. Because I think with this sample, I was able to read 3 chapters, so that was impressive. Um, we get to see like different types of races too. So it's not your traditional like elf, orc, human. Like there's humans, but we have a race of like sort of like devil people. They have like horns, and like some of them get their horns like shaven if they live in a certain community, or if they fall in a certain like they live in a certain region where the ruler like isn't okay with them growing their horns out. Which again, that's another example of the nice world building that's going on here that Sean Bell is weaving into the story. But there's also like these like sort of insect people that can like shapeshift. I forget what the race is actually called, but they're like an alien shapeshifting insect sort of type of deal, and that was pretty cool too. So we get to see, I think, one thing that would be interesting and why I would continue the story. Oh, I should probably save this for later, but I'm curious how these races came to be and maybe their like cultures and stuff like that. So I wonder if that's something that Sean Bell touches on later in the story. But yeah, we have a unique world here that he is working on a very short scale and is doing a good job with it. So that was one thing that I did really enjoy. Log was also pretty net. Sorry, I just got a text from my landlord. That's weird. Says there's a no pet policy implemented. No pets allowed. The dialogue in Triumph of Destiny is also well put together. It feels like the natural flow of speak, when people are talking to each other. So I think the dialogue is another strength, another pro of Triumph of Destiny. As for critiques, I think something that would help the story a lot, involving pacing and characterization, is to just slow the story down a little bit, right? Our story starts off. Our main character, Dalian, his hometown is like bombed by these like, or it's exploded. Basically, his hometown's getting attacked. It's completely decimated, and he's sort of, the book opens up with him witnessing it happen. And then like the next scene we get, he's like walking to a tavern, and he runs into this guy named Anarch, or Anarak, Anarch. I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize, but and they talk for a little bit, and then Dalian decides just to go off with him on an adventure, or follow him, become his like servant to get into this like sort of luxurious party that's being held by like the royalty of this world. I think it you have a great opportunity to build character here if you sort of slow down that beginning and really work through how this character is taking in losing his hometown, it being decimated. We get a little bit of world building, so we see that Dalian has and his people have this function where they make like sort of like they have like an honor, they have a duty to their word and their people, and so we get a little bit of that. But I think it'd be awesome if you slow down that beginning a little bit and like really work through how the character's feeling. What are the possible implications of him losing his hometown? Because it sort of feels like in New Hope of Star Wars when Luke's like uncle and them get killed by the Tusken Raiders, And then he's like, "Oh man, that sucks. I'm gonna go be a Jedi now and join Obi-Wan in space." You know what I'm saying? It's like, whoa, like did you even care about them? You know? And so I would like to see that here. And so the story is pretty fast paced. And there's nothing wrong with the fast pacing. I just think in this instance, we need to slow down the pace a little bit in the beginning because this is something that's huge, right? I mean, if I watched my small hometown that's up a holler somewhere get destroyed, like I think it'd be hard for me just to, go to the local bar, in the town over, and then agree to go on like maybe a journey with somebody that I just met to like this like and pretend to be his like servant. Um, I don't know. Maybe I would if I had more time to sort of work through my feelings about what just happened or work through the implications of losing my hometown. So I think that would be one thing that the story would really help characterizing Dalian as a character. Um, it's just to really focus on, his hometown got destroyed. So what does that mean for him? Otherwise, I mean, our other two main characters, which one is, I believe her name is. Hold on, let me find it real quick. Well, let's start with Anarch. Anarch, yeah, he is like the devil one. He has his horns, and he has his horns shaven, and we get a world lore reason why that is, which I really enjoyed that. Um, so we get a good idea of his character, which is nice. And then we have another character who I also really enjoyed. I think she has a good intro to her character. I'll find it one second. Bear with me. Lorian is her name. And she was also a pretty interesting character. We get to see that she can shapeshift, stuff like that. Pretty interesting. So yeah, I think maybe again just slow down the beginning and let's get some more character work for Dalian. So for for all the marbles, would I continue reading the Aidaean saga, Triumph of Destiny? Yes, I think there's a lot of the setting works, I think, in the author's favor because there's so many routes you can take with this already sort of different, unique world that he set up. We have a lot of different cultures and organizations like the judiciates, which are sort of like a function of government, but they're sort of like a police force. Think of like the White Cloaks from Wheel of Time. We have lost a lot of moving pieces here that I think gives Mr. Sean Bell a lot to work with here in his story, and so it leaves a lot of interest for me as a reader after reading the sample to see, okay, where does he go with this story? Where are we headed? So, who would I recommend this story for? Um, Again, like Warhammer 40k, it gives that sort of energy. So if that's something you're interested in, then I'd give this story a read. If you're looking for something that's fast paced and has a lot of action, I think this is a good story as well. There's the pacing is quick, snappy, and there's a lot of action going on, sort of like an action movie. And if you're interested in the blend of science fiction and fantasy, I think I'd also check the story out. Again, everyone, before we conclude this video, once again, I'd like to shout out authors Matt Sean Bell and Ben Dixon for giving me these samples. I'm going to try my best to put links to their works in the description. So if you want to go ahead and take my advice and check them out, you can go there and purchase a copy. I believe they're both on like you have the ebook and you could get a physical copy as well. So that'll be it for this week's video, guys. Thank you all for watching, and I believe we are going to be ranking Lovecraft short stories in next week's video. I know I promised it for this week, but I wanted to go ahead and get this video out there. And next week we'll rank some Lovecraft short stories. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday.